We have some really big news.
We have a brand new book, and we've invited a couple more fabrics to the party.
Hi, it's Donna Robertson.
And Fran Morgan with Fabric Café.
We are so excited to take you on a brand new adventure with Fabric Café and our new book, Fabulous 5-Yard Quilts.
Each pattern is written to use 5 different 1-yard cuts of fabric.
But don't worry, we are still following the same easy format of our patterns.
And picking fabric is a little bit different, but we've come up with a formula that will help you succeed every time. So let's check out our first quilt and we'll step through it all. Now this is Zenith, and this is a really cool quilt. Now actually it's a 1 block, which is amazing. We've simply made it in 2 colorways. So this one and this one. And then we take the blocks and we just rotate them, put them together, and it creates this cool, like, optical illusion, like this is coming out from the center here, which is really, really neat. Super easy to put together, just sewing strips to the side of our block, some simple half square triangles, and it's all good to go. Let's check out the fabric. So we are gonna stick to our fabric number 1 as our focus fabric. Our fabric number 2 is the lightest. Our fabric number 3 will be dark. That is our standard 3-yard quilt system. So we're sticking to that 1, 2, 3, just like you would do in a 3-yard quilt.
Well, that makes it really easy then to just learn where to put the number 4 and 5 and what it's going to be. It is super easy. So 3 plus 2 equals 5.
Okay, so we're gonna start with fabric number 4.
Okay.
And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start over again. So like 1 is focus, 2 is light, 3 is dark. Then we're gonna start at 4 as our secondary focus, and 5 can either go light or dark.
Depending on what the pattern needs when you look at the picture.
Yes.
Yeah,
So it's
super
perfect.
simple.
Very, very, very simple. Okay, so let's look at our fabric for our Zenith pattern here. And for our focus, we have this really fun kind of a filigree vine that's on a black that is very pretty in these greens. And as you can see, we have put it in our star block, our half square triangles here, as well as on the border here. And then for our number, now remember, our number 2 is our lightest. That is next. That is in our background of our star block here. That is giving us our contrast, just like a 3-yard quilt, but we've applied it to a 5-yard quilt. For our number 3 fabric, we have this beautiful, beautiful dark navy. Has a little bit of texture to it. And that is gonna go on the border of the block. That's the very last little part of the block that you're gonna sew on. And then we're gonna also include it on the border of the quilt. So it gives us that really nice frame and that anchor. Now we're starting with our fabric number 4. And like I said before, we're starting over. So this would be like a secondary focus fabric. Once again, we'll go in our star block as well as one of the borders of the block and then on the border of our quilt. And I love that like double focus kind of a concept. Gives us lots of extra texture and movement and pops of color, which I think is great.
You know what I find interesting too, because these are such a little different, but the background of the black seems to create that continuity that you need whenever you get 2 focus fabrics up against each other.
Yes, I love that you mentioned that. So our background color is the same, which is very cool. And then for our number 5, you said, you know, we mentioned that you could go light or dark on this. This is kind of probably more in the dark realm. And I have it as a point of the star as well as a border of our block here. So this is actually a 1 block quilt, and we've simply made it in 2 colorways or 2 color placements. So you're making it exactly the same. You're just using the number 4 fabric on the middle part of this one and our number 5 fabric on the middle part of this one. Makes it really simple, makes it really easy. And that way you're making those blocks over and over and over again and it goes like that.
Absolutely.
Very, very fun. All right, let's get you the kit information on this one. It is called a Sapphire Serenade. And this is our Zenith quilt from Fabulous 5-Yard Quilts.
Now this quilt pattern is called Bella, and it's a super sweet and super easy quilt to make. It's 2 simple blocks. First, we have a bordered block here, and you can use directional fabric in it, so that's a real plus whenever you're going through your stash or picking out fabric. You can pick any particular focus fabric, and it's going to be great in this block. Now, this block is also super simple to do. We decided to not put any half square triangles in this. Instead, we used the stitch and flip method to make this cute little bow in the center of this block. And it's super simple to get it to just suspend right in the middle. So let's look at the fabric and show you how gorgeous it is up close. Now, in the book, you can see that we have all of the same great parts that you love. For instance, all of our cutting instructions are available, set apart in a box. So when it comes time for you to cut, you can pay all of your attention to that box, and you will know exactly how to cut all of your pieces. When you look at the color swatches under the quilt, see how we said we want focus in number 1, the light in number 2, and the dark in number 3. Our number 4 fabric is going to be another focus. Now, in this particular case, our number 5 fabric is actually kind of a mid-tone. So if you look at the quilt right here, you can see that the mid-tone of this number 5 fabric and the mid-tone of that number 2 create the perfect contrast with your darker fabrics here.
And you know what's great is I love that we give a picture of the fabric swatches individually underneath the quilt, so that if you're not sure what to use for your number 5, you can kind of play off of what we've selected, so that you know that, oh, well, it looks like it's not too dark and it's not too light, it's that mid-tone.
Right.
So that would be kind of how I would choose that.
Now, the other thing that we've done is, you may be thinking, we've always used a polka dot for our number 1, a white box for our number 2, and then a black box for our number 3. So we've given you a little gingham check for our number 4, and then the number 5 is a gray box, which is going to be either light or dark.
It's perfect.
Now, let's look at the fabric.
This is gorgeous fabric.
The number 1 fabric is going to go in the center of your bordered block, and you can use a directional or a tossed fabric. Either one works perfectly. And that is a gorgeous fabric.
Love it.
Yes, I do too. Now we've chosen a kind of a mid-tone light, is kind of what you would call it, because it does have a lot of movement in there. It's got that depth. So that is going to go in the number 2 spot here. The number 3 is your dark, and as we always say, that dark fabric has a tendency to be the accent color in your quilt. And that's what we've done, just like we do with 3 yards. We've got our accent color here and here.
And I love how we've bordered the focus with our number 3. I love it when we do it in 3 yards. I love it when we do it in 5 yards. Because, as you mentioned earlier, if you did choose a light here, this number 3 is going to kind of encapsulate it.
Yes.
And really help it still pop really well.
Now our number 4 fabric is going to be out here on the border. I love big borders like this, and because it's a bigger quilt, it's perfect. You'll be able to get a bigger border as well. So this is our number 4 right here. Our number 5 fabric, that's going to be another one. This is kind of a dark mid-range, where the number 2 was a light mid-range.
Well, you
can we mix all of our colors?
Yeah, you can really see in this quilt how when you put them together, the difference in them. So being our light number 2, which is what we're sticking with, and then our number 5 is kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It does, it works perfectly. And this creates the contrast with those darker colors that we've used in the number 1, the number 3, and the number 4. So it is a really simple formula for you to use, and you don't have to learn a whole lot of new things. You just start playing with some gorgeous fabric, and you're going to get this beautiful quilt.
Yes.
Now this kit is called Moonlit Trellis, and it's the Bella pattern from the fabulous 5-yard quilts.
Now this beauty is Aurora, and it's one of my favorites out of the book, and there's some reasons for that. First, we have our alternate block here is simply a square. It's just cut very easily and placed here, and it can use a directional fabric. Another one of our blocks is right here. It's also just a square and can use a directional fabric. Now, alternating with these just square blocks are a really wonderful piece block that gives it the illusion that you've done so much more than you have. And I love how the edges of the alternate block kind of frame our square and make it look really cool. So we've got nice big blocks. It can take directional fabric, and it is a beauty. Let's get it on the table. This fabric right here, and I'm gonna crop this first block, has something a little special on it. It has gorgeous colors with this black background. They're jewel tones, and they just are so striking. But if you look a little closer, there's some little silhouettes of kitties.
I know.
So cute.
When I first looked at this quilt, whenever you showed me your quilt, I was like, are those cats? They are just so sweet, so sweet.
Are. So this is our #1 fabric, and as I said at the quilt, this block is just a square. You're just cutting a square, so it makes it so easy. This is gonna be our next block. It is made with our #4 fabric, which is our secondary focus. And you can see, once again, it's just a square. So how easy is that?
It's pretty easy.
Yes. Now we've alternated these blocks that are just squares with a pieced block to add the interest. So let's move our cropping tool over right here. And you can see that what we've done here is a little flying geese strip right in the middle, a strip on each side, and then another little strip on each side that has a half square triangle right on the ends. Makes it so easy.
You know, it's so fun that this quilt has so much going on in it, but 2 of the blocks are just squares.
Yes.
And that joining block is just perfect. I love it.
It's cool too, because I think when you put these joining blocks together, how they're rotated, it almost makes it look like this right here is part of this other block, and it's not.
I just love the fact that you can get the most complicated looking quilt and we will make it easy for you to follow.
Yes, I agree. So let's look at this fabric because it's gorgeous. Okay, so our focus fabric and this big square here is this gorgeous kitty fabric on the black. And it's neat because I like the way it kind of, would you say ombres a little bit in color, or it has this variation of color. So we've got our pinks, and then it just kind of gradually turns to greens and blues and then back to pinks. Very pretty. And this is a directional fabric, and it works perfectly in this location.
You could use the directional fabric for both of your squares, couldn't you?
Yes, so for both your focus fabrics, you could use a directional fabric.
Very
because
good.
it's cut independently. It works.
Yeah.
Okay, for our #2 fabric, this is another fabric that has that gradation of color that's going in the background from the blues to the greens with these really great kind of gold and red floral on top of it. Now that is used for all of your flying geese here in our half square triangles and on these half square triangles here as well. So it just kind of gives it that pop against our #3.
Well, I want to say, we always say you should always have an interesting #2 fabric, and I think you have achieved that.
Boy, did we. Well, it works. You know,
It
when you have
is.
5 fabrics to work with,
That's right.
I can separate my #2 with my #3 fabric, which I'll show you next, which is this great, very textural black. Now, this kind of has a little bit of beige tones in the background, just a hint, but it still basically reads as a black, which is great because that does surround all of our triangles here to get that look, to really help our #2 pop. And then, of course, it is bordering one of our squares here, which makes it really nice. Okay, now this is interesting too. I did some crazy things on this, I know. So our #4 fabric, which is our secondary focus, we've used this floral that the background changes color and the flowers change color. This is gonna go in this big block here. It's just cut as a square, and it actually mimics our #2 fabric.
It does.
But it's a little bit darker and has a little bit more color going on. So that's the reason why I chose it for the #4. And then for our #5 fabric, here's another one of these that's kind of a mid-tone. Talk about movement in a fabric. Oh my goodness. We've got that color variance in there, this really cool, it's like a wavy dot. It's a dot, but it's done in waves,
Right.
kind of, so it gives you that movement.
So it almost has a stripe effect to it.
Right.
It's gorgeous.
And it separates here. This is in our block, our alternate block that separates our half-square triangle piecing here, and then some on the border as well. All right, let's get you the kit information on this. It is called Purrfect Blooms, and it is our Aurora pattern from the fabulous 5-yard quilt book.
Now this one is called Athena. And it was actually inspired, this little block here was kind of inspired by a Greek key. And so I tried to find a way that would easily piece it and kind of give you the essence of a Greek key. It's not identical, but then hence the name Athena. So this one is so much fun to make. It's super simple, just a bordered block for here that you can also use directional or tossed fabric. And then this is a simple piecing technique that will create the swirl of the Greek key here. Now, we're going to put this on the table and talk about the gorgeous fabric that we have. We went real subtle and soothing colors. Part of the reason why I used a lot of this lighter colors in the background is because I fell in love with this focus fabric. It is just so gorgeous. And it could be a directional in this block because you would be able to use the directional bordering it and place them exactly where you need. There's no twisting and turning of the block. But this is more of a all over print, and you can see it kind of makes each of the blocks look different.
It does.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So like this looks really highlights this one. And then this block is just a little bit different. It shows off a different section of the fabric.
Right.
And then even this one down here, different section of the fabric. Oh, that's so cool. I love it when we get big prints and that happens.
As we go through these, you're going to see I have one big focus fabric and then I've got 4 tonal fabrics in here. So with our number 1, the center of the blocks, and then the number 2 is that light, as usual, focus, light, and that's going to go in the background around our block. And then the number 3 fabric is that additional, that darker that we want to stand out. So we're getting that contrast with these 2. Then our number 4 fabric is going to be bordering this gorgeous print. I mean, that's just perfect.
It is.
And that one, we did not go with a focus because we were using it as more of an accent color like we do with with the number 3. I wanted it to really frame off here.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And just like with 3-yard quilts, any 5 yards will work in any 5-yard quilt.
Absolutely.
We have to change our language.
And if you're a quilt rebel, you get to break the rules, as we've
right.
told you in the past, and
so much
you
fun to
have
be a
permission to rebel. Okay, and then for our number 5 fabric, we went with another light tonal. So you can see we have the light with the number 2, and then we've gone light with our number 5.
And if you really love this spiral block here on this quilt and our big block as well, be sure to tune in on Thursday because we're going to break this pattern down so that you can see exactly how it's made, as well as a few others. Plus, we have more fun fabric combinations to show you.
Now this kit is called Floral Palace. It's the Athena pattern from the fabulous 5-yard quilts.
Now this quilt we named Galaxy, and we named it Galaxy because it's like a quilt full of stars. And it's almost like you're looking into a night sky and they're twinkling. But what's really cool is there's this lots of extra movement that is created by the alternate block here. So we have this block here, which is really cool, just half square triangle, and a little square here that's bordered on 2 sides. We've put them together and that creates our line here. Very cool. Then we have a really great star in this block. And I love how this went together with these beautiful fabrics. Really fun to do. And I love the fact that you're not doing a star in every single block. That way it kind of cuts down on some of the work, makes it a little faster. And this alternate block creates this box behind our stars that almost make the stars look like they're coming out at you, which I think is so cool. Kind of like a night sky on a clear day. I love it. So lots of fun on this one. Let's get it on the table and talk about this gorgeous fabric. Our focus fabric fabric is this gorgeous batik that has just a little hint of silver metallic on it. I love this fabric. It is so striking. This turquoise blue on this black just really pops.
It certainly does.
Oh, so pretty. And as you can see, we have it in the center of our stars as well as our little 4 patches on the corner. And then we have it in our alternate block here and here. So I love how these blocks come together, and you see how this like makes this square right here? I love how it just kind of adds the dimension, like you're looking at it going, wow, where's the block end and where does it begin?
That is so cool, friend.
So cool. So gorgeous focus fabric. Now for our number 2, we have gone more of a tone on tone with a white, and that is here in our alternate block bordering our focus, as well as the background of our star. So that gives us the contrast we really need to really help this pop and be gorgeous. Then our number 3 fabric, now as you see, we're sticking to our 3-yard method, and we'll continue focus, take that out of the equation, our light and our dark as our number 3. This number 3 is gorgeous. Once again, a batik. It has the pinks and blues and a little bits of purple in there. So pretty. And it kind of has this swirly kind of a look to it, a little bit that's just so much fun. And this fabric borders our star block as well as borders our inner border, I guess you could say, here on these pieces. I think it just helps to create that illusion that is from the piecing. Okay, so for our focus, I took one out of your book, thank you. I have used kind of a modeled fabric for my secondary focus. And this has a lot of texture and dimension to it. We've got greens and blues and aquas all in there. And that is this fabric here. It is creating that line, that's that angle, which I think is so cool. So, and these are great big half square triangles, so they're really simple to do. And then for our number 5, once again, it's kind of a mid-tone, kind of a light. It's a nice creamy white with a gray kind of swirl on top. That is paired with our number 4 fabric here and our big triangles, and then a little bit on the border as well. 5 yards is basically making a twin size quilt.
It is, pretty close
right?
to it.
So what we have done is we have given you additional instructions to make a queen king topper so that you have your twin size, which is the normal instructions, and then our queen king. And you only need 2 5-yard kits to make a queen king. So that's 10 yards of fabric. Isn't that great?
That's pretty simple.
It's so awesome. And we have done a little image for you here so that you can see how great that's going to look as a king size.
That really shows off that diagonal stripe.
It really does.
That you're making with those half square triangles.
So cool. And those squares on top of squares to give it that dimension, and just a galaxy full of stars.
Beautiful.
All right, let's get you the kit information on this. This kit is named Garden Mirage, and once again, it's our galaxy pattern from our brand new, fabulous 5-yard quilts.
Now this quilt is called Eclipse, and I love this quilt, and this is the perfect quilt for the 5-yard patterns because you really do need all of those different colors in order to layer up this block and make it look like it's just squares stacked on top of squares, stacked on top of squares. So I love the way it turned out. 2 super easy blocks that we're using here. And when you make this block, this little point becomes the background for this particular square. So much fun to make, so easy to make. Now, let's get an up close and personal with this beautiful fabric. So you're going to have 2 blocks, and the 2 blocks that you're going to make are here. So you're using your number 3 and your number 2 fabric to make this. You've got that high contrast going on here. And then you're going to make this, the other block is going to be as simple as this. This is actually 4 half square triangles put together. So if we come up like this, you can see the half square triangle. And so we're putting 4 of those together. Now the cool thing is that when you put those 2 blocks side by side, then it's going to create this and this, so that this actually has all 4 of those points. And here looks like you've created a totally different block by putting those 2 blocks together. It's a lot of fun.
It is so cool how our A and B blocks play off each other to create the secondary patterns. I think this was genius.
Well, thank you.
I
Genius
love
runs in the family, dear.
I love this extra little movement here, but it's not hard to do.
Right.
And I think it's great. And your fabrics are to die for.
We have our number 1 fabric, and in this particular case, we're going kind of dark with that number 1 because we wanted that focus to really show up in the center of the blocks. So that's our number 1, and then our number 2, I love the movement of this. It's just like either wind blowing or water movement. It's just got that fun little movement to it, and it's very subtle. But again, it gives you that little bit of depth as well.
And texture. And it has some gold metallic on it.
Oh, yeah.
Which gives us a little bling, which it never hurts anything.
It has a little glow to it. Okay, so that's our number 2 fabric, and it's going to go everywhere you see the white here. Our number 3 is the dark, so it's going to go here. And then we also make the half square triangles. And then we go back to our focus. Now this is going to be the border. So we put the borders out here on this particular one with this darkest fabric. Then our number 5 fabric. These are kind of bubbles.
Yes, love it. Or raindrops.
Yeah, raindrops, yes, but they are great. And again, you're getting that depth to the fabric with these the lights and darks and blues. And this has all of the colors.
Yeah.
And that's just great.
It's perfect.
So this particular quilt is going to definitely be one of my favorites. How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments which quilt is your favorite.
Yeah,
You know,
it's if it's not like us, we have a hard time because I'll see hers and I'll go, oh, yours are my favorite.
Hers are my favorite.
So it is nice to know what you like as well. Now this particular kit is called Lagoon Dreams. It's the Eclipse pattern from the fabulous 5-Yard Quilts book.
Now this wonderful 5-yard quilt here is called Wondrous, and it is so cool. And you know why it's so wondrous? It's a 1-block quilt. And we all know how great a 1-block quilt is because once you make the block once, you kind of get in the groove and you get going, and before you know it, you have a whole quilt top. And this one is very cool. We have our block here, and we'll crop this out on the table so you can see it closer. But it's actually made with stitch and flip and 2 squares here, as well as some half square triangles that come together that make it so simple. And you put it all together and you rotate your blocks, and it's so cool. So let's check it out on the table. Let me crop this out so that you can see what I mean. And then I'll show you a couple of little tricks that we have here. So here is our block.
Wow. And
So-
you've used all 5 fabrics in that
one
one
block.
block.
Yes.
Wow, just look at that. That is gorgeous.
And because they're all textural fabrics and they all are kind of in the same color family, it works.
And there's so much difference in the fabric. So whenever you start pointing out the fabrics, you can see how the color kind of waves through the fabric. And it makes it look like you've used a whole lot more.
Yes. Okay, and I want to show you just one additional thing on this, which is really pretty cool. So right here is the corner of one of our blocks. And what this is a square with a stitch and flip corner. Okay?
Just one
Now,
corner.
On the other corner, on the opposite corner of the block, we have exactly the same thing, just with a different fabric.
I mean, that is one simple block.
Yes. Okay. Now the other 2 units from this block are basically made like a pinwheel, but the color placement's a little different than what you would see in a traditional pinwheel. And basically we have 4 half square triangles. So that's in that corner of the block, and then the same thing in the opposite corner.
It is a wonder. You are a wonder.
You put all 4 of those units together, and this is your block, and it's really, really very cool.
It is.
The way it all comes together, because let's pull this off and look at this. What it does is it creates this really cool star and then a secondary star with this diagonal line between them whenever you put them all together. It's so much fun.
It is great. I love it.
Yeah, and if you love this quilt as much as we do, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell. We're going to be making this quilt, and we'll be using some different fabrics so you can see it, lots of different colors and fabric choices. So it'll be lots of fun. But let's look at this fabric.
Okay.
All right, our focus fabric is a gorgeous texture with greens and pinks and a little bit of oranges. It just has, it's so cool. It just has so much variation in it. And as you can see, of course, it is in our stitch and flip block as well as our little triangle blocks there in all of our blocks. Then our number 2, true to form, is our light. And this is a neat kind of white, gray, beige. This is really important to be our light because it gives us our contrast down the center of the block in our half square triangles and a little on the border to just give it a brighten up.
But it's great the way that it has that texture in it so that it doesn't just become stark in the contrast. It's very contrasting, but there's a little bit of subtlety or grounding with it, so it's just not like popping in your face.
Right, I agree with that. All right, our number 3 is our darkest of our first 3. Another texture, beautiful purples with some turquoise in it. And as you can see, we have them here in our little pinwheel blocks, and they come together and make this neat little diamond points here. And then of course we have them on the border. Our number 4 fabric is our secondary focus. And because I have chosen all textures, I just chose this one to be my secondary focus because I wanted it to be in this big star section.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I did that. I was like, ooh, I love those colors. I want to put them there, so I see a whole bunch of them.
It's so funny because I love the way whenever you turn, you've used all 5 colors in each block, and then when you turn them and put these together, it almost looks like you've created this block, or even making it bigger, you've got these little points, almost like it's a cross.
It's crazy,
It's gorgeous.
Isn't it? So here we have our number 4, and a little bit on the border there, just to kind of frame it all in. And then for our number 5, we have chosen a little bit darker this time, some of these jade greens, navies, even some little touches of lime green in there, which is great. And that is in our little, what I'm calling a pinwheel block that's not really placed that way, but we understand that concept.
We understand the concept that it's 4 half square triangles that you put together. It's just that you've mixed up your colors a little bit differently.
Yes. So it kind of gives us that line that creates that diagonal line. So very fun. Love all these textures. This is so gorgeous. All right, let's get you the kit information on this. It is called Dreamy Horizon, and it is our Wondrous pattern from the fabulous 5-Yard Quilt Book.
Now, we named this pattern Cosmos, and it too is out of this world. It's just such a gorgeous quilt, so easy to make, and we just simply use a stitch and flip method on this particular block. This can accommodate a directional fabric if you'd like, and then you could also put another focus fabric in the middle of this block if you wanted. But it's just a real versatile pattern that has a lot of movement. You can see a great diagonal look here where the way the points come together. And I just think it's going to become one of your favorites like it's one of my favorites. Now let's put it on the table and talk about this gorgeous fabric. This particular batik I liked because it has all of my favorites. My lake house, I have quilts that have these colors. Yeah, and they're my favorites to sit on, and my kitty's favorites to sit on as well. Now this is our focus fabric. It's going to go in the center of our block, and we do the little flip and stitch and flip on the corners of this block. And if you look at it, you can actually see that there's a little bit of that same layering that we've done where you've got like this little white is behind here. It's almost like it creates another square on it. So this is our focus that goes here. Our number 2 is a white, and we did that so that you could really, you wanted that pop. And because it's a softer color, it does have just a little bit of texture to it. But whenever you go softer colors, you can use a little more a
brighter
brilliant,
white.
yeah, brighter white. And it works. It might not work with some of the darker fabrics because there's almost too much contrast. And then our number 3 fabric is going to be the points of our stars that we have here. And our number 4 fabric, we're going to use that out in the borders. And our number 5 fabric is the center of the stars as well as out on the border.
And this is cool because it's the texture that kind of picks up all of these.
That's true, yeah, absolutely. It's the companion color to that,
Yes.
absolutely. So I really like this one, and if you are an aqua person like me, I bet you will like it as well. Now, this is called Soothing Spirals, and it's the Cosmos pattern from the fabulous 5-Yard Quilts book.
Now, you have been asking for a 5-yard book, and we are so excited that it's here.
Yes, and all of the fabrics that you saw today are also available by the yard.
Now, if you would like some great tips on making half-square triangles to help you out with these patterns, be sure to watch the video that pops up.
Happy quilting!